Hello, lovely viewers. You are most welcome to our channel Poetry Online. In this video, we shall be presenting to you the detailed analysis of the poem Not My Business by Niyi Osundare. By the end of this video, learners will be expected to have a vivid understanding of the meaning of the poem, the major themes of the poem, the literal devices employed in the poem, the structure of the poem, the language, diction, and tone of the poem. Last but not the least, the mood of the poem. Kindly subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to get updates on all our new videos. Once again, let us assure you of a very interesting discussion. Get ready for this lesson. Niyi Osundare was born in Ekere, Ekiti, in Ekiti State, Nigeria in 1947. He was educated in the University of Ibadan, University of Leeds, England, and New York University, Toronto in Canada. He is a playwright, essayist, and currently professor of English at the University of New Orleans, USA. He has published 15 books of poetry and has won many prizes. His poems have been translated to many languages. He is also a human rights campaigner. And today, we are going to discuss his poem, Not My Business. Let us take our first reading of the poem. They picked Akani up one morning, beat him soft like clay, and stuffed him down the belly of a waiting jeep. What business of mine is it, so long they don't take the yarn from my savoring mouth? They came one night, booted the whole house awake, and dragged Dunladi out, then off to a lengthy absence. What business of mine is it, so long they don't take the yarn from my savoring mouth? Chinwe went to work one day, only to find her job was gone. No query, no warning, no probe, just one neat sack for a stainless record. What business of mine is it, so long they don't take the yarn from my savoring mouth? And then one evening, as I sat down to eat my yam, a knock on the door froze my hungry hand. The jeep was waiting on my bewildered lawn, waiting in its usual silence. So before we begin today's lesson, let's consider the following wise sayings. In the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. Martin Luther King Jr. The world is a dangerous place, not because of those who do evil, but because of those who look on and do nothing. By Albert Einstein. If you are neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. If an elephant has its foot on the tail of a mouse, and you say you are neutral, the mouse will not appreciate your neutrality. Desmond Tutu. In a world full of chaos and uncertainty, the danger of appetite looms like a silent insidious threat. Apathy, the lack of interest, enthusiasm, or concern, is a perilous state of mind that can permeate societies, corroding the very fabric of humanity. This poem, Not My Business, aims to explore the dangers of apathy, its impact on the individuals and society, and the dark consequences of its prevalence. At its core, apathy is a form of emotional paralysis that numbs the human capacity for empathy, compassion, and action. When individuals become apathetic, they lose the ability to engage with the world around them, turning a blind eye to injustice, suffering, and moral decay. This detachment from the human experience not only erodes personal connections, but also cultivates a breeding ground for indifference and neglect. This poem, Not My Business, echoes the position that, in an unjust society, silence is not an option. The dangers of apathy extend far beyond individual apathetic tendencies. They seep into the very foundation of society, corroding the bonds that hold communities together. When a critical mass of individuals succumb to apathy, social and political structures are left vulnerable to exploitation and abuse. In the face of systemic injustice, apathy becomes a silent ally of the oppressors, enabling the perpetuation of inequality, discrimination, and tyranny. Moreover, apathy poses a threat to progress and innovation. When a society becomes complacent and indifferent, the impetus for change wanes, stifling the potential for growth and advancement. Apathy shrouds a beacon of hope and stifles the voices of reform, leaving society stagnant and resistant to positive transformation. The consequences of widespread apathy are dire and far-reaching. History has borne witness to the catastrophic outcomes of societal indifference, from the perpetuation of human rights abuses to the rise of totalitarian regimes. The failure to confront apathy emboldens those who seek to exploit it, perpetuating a cycle of societal decay and moral erosion. Niyi Osundare's poem, Not My Business, is a powerful and thought-provoking piece that delves into the theme of social injustice and the consequences of turning a blind eye to oppression. The poem, written in a deceptively simple and conversational style, highlights the poet's use of language and imagery to convey a profound message. The poem begins with the speaker describing various instances of oppression and violence that occurs in his community. Each stanza represents a different scenario, such as the abduction of a neighbor, the arrest of a man in his house, and the sacking of a woman. In each case, the speaker repeats the refrain, "What business of mine is it?" emphasizing his detachment and unwillingness to get involved in what is happening. As the poem progresses, the consequences of the speaker's apathy becomes clear. The violence and oppression, initially directed at others, eventually comes to affect the speaker himself. The poem culminates a powerful and haunting image of the speaker being taken away by the oppressor, as the lone is literally unable to do anything about the situation. Osundare's use of repetition, simple language, and vivid imagery serves to underscore the chilling message of the poem. The refrain, "What business of mine is it?" echoes throughout the piece, highlighting the pervasive attitude of indifference and self-preservation that allows injustice to thrive. The poem serves as a stark reminder of the dangers of remaining silent in the face of oppression and the interconnectedness of all individuals within a community. In conclusion, Not My Business by Niyi Osundare is a poignant and evocative poem that challenges its readers to challenge their own complicity and complacency in the face of injustice. Through a simple yet powerful language and imagery, the poem delivers a profound message about the interconnectedness of humanity and the moral imperative to stand up against oppression. The poem sheds light into the issue of "I don't care" attitude, which most people adopt in the face of oppression. People don't really care about what happens to the next man and are generally calm at the misfortune of others. As long as they are not in trouble, they are good to go. The idea of literature or art as an agent of change in a society has been artistically captured in this poem. The poem bemoans the loss of empathy and humanity on the part of people who claim to be neutral, unbiased, and impartial in situations where their neutrality is not appreciated or only encourages the perpetrators to continue doing more evil. This poem really tied that attitude in people where love for one's neighbor has been thrown in the dustbin. The poem clearly demonstrates to its readers that what goes around surely comes back around. The poem captures the widespread of this attitude and the ethnic relevance of names in Nigeria. The three individual names Niyi Osundare mentioned in the poem have sociocultural connotation. Akani, a Yoruba name; Danladi, a Hausa name; and Chinwe, an Igbo name, are referring to the three major ethnic groups in Nigeria. Akani and Danladi are names for males, while Chinwe is a female name. And this goes to imply that dictatorial rule cares less about a person's tribe or gender. That is, the more reason one should speak against it. The use of people from the three major ethnic groups in Nigeria is undoubtedly intended by the poet to mirror the prevalent nature of the threat to civil liberty in Nigeria at the time the poem was written. It also goes to depict the brutish nature of the leader who, despite his affiliation to one of the major ethnic groups, that is, Hausa in this case, judging by his name, Abacha, unleashed terror on all, regardless of their ethnic affiliations to him. This standpoint lends intensity to the theme of blind brutality, personifying dictatorship. Let's now take a detailed analysis of the lines in the poem, starting with the first stanza. They picked Akane up one morning, beat him soft like clay, and stuffed him down the belly of a waiting jeep. What business of mine is it? So long they don't take the yarn from my savoring mouth. The poet opens the poem with a third person pronoun they, which clearly depicts the poet's apathy and indifference to the plight of his neighbor, since he is not sure of who the oppressors are. They, as used in the poem, refers to the powers or agents of the oppressors, most likely the police or soldiers in the military regime, or better still, dictatorial forces. The events in this stanza take place in the morning. The first line of the poem to a large extent conceals the identity of the so-called perpetrator, that is, making them more powerful and abusive. Right from the first stanza of the poem, the poet exposes readers to the I don't care attitude of many people. This I don't care attitude of people, in a way, empowers the abusers and encourages them in their wrong course of action. What it simply means is that he who remains neutral in the presence of injustice is only encouraging injustice or is a collaborator in the act. Akane is the name of the victim in the first stanza. He is beaten mercilessly, just like a clay is beaten to pulp, so it can easily be bent and twisted to any desired shape. By comparing his torment to that of the clay in the poetry business, the poet clearly illustrates how oppressors subdue their victims. Despite this gross injustice, the speaker shows no empathy, as he sees it as none of his business. In effect, he does not care about the predicaments of the victim. He will only see the victim's problem as his problem, only and only if this problem is capable of denying him of his daily meals. But as long as his meals are not tampered with, then he is good to go, or everything is normal to him. Akane is depicted as a helpless victim who is forced into a jeep, ever ready to swallow him up. This jeep is described as a marauder or a hungry beast waiting to swallow whoever enters it. They came one night, booted the whole house awake, and dragged Dunladi out, then off to a lengthy absence. What business of mine is it? So long they don't take the yarn from my savoring mouth. The actions in the second stanza take place in the night, a time that is supposed to be filled with serenity, quietness, and relaxation. Notice how they change the night into a time of horror and unrest for Dunladi and his whole household or family. Dunladi's house was raided and he was booted and dragged out of the comfort of his home. The use of the lexical items, booted and dragged, shows a violent action that took place in Dunladi's household. The poet poses as a passive viewer who cares little, or in fact, has little power to change what he sees, and as such, he does nothing to change the plight of the people around him. The fact that this man's house is terrorized, awoken, and has been dragged away, not to be heard from anymore for a long time, is enough to get anyone's compassion, empathy, and sympathy. Yet, the speaker is indifferent to the plight so long as his yam reaches his mouth. Chinwe went to work one day, only to find her job was gone. No query, no warning, no probe, just one neat sack for a stainless record. What business of mine is it? So long they don't take the yarn from my savoring mouth. The poem now shifts our attention from the homes of people to one's livelihood and means of sustenance. This suggests that oppressive forces have become exceedingly inescapable and ever-present. That is, wherever one finds himself, one is bound to encounter them. Chinwe's everyday life must have been uprooted by the sudden unexpected loss of job and all the consequences that come along with it. Notice the heartlessness with which she was sacked from work. She only found out once she arrived at work that she has been sacked or fired. Thus, firing someone without prior notice is the pinnacle of injustice, disrespect, and callousness. It is interesting to note that this stanza ends with a lot of sarcasm. The speaker describes the manner in which Chinwe is being sacked as one neat sack for a stainless record. That is, one would have thought that with a stainless record, his or her job is forever secured. But how wrong she was. She wasn't sacked as a result of inefficiency, incompetence, or bad attitude towards work. No, she was just sacked for the fun of it. The sarcasm, coupled with the lack of empathy of the speaker, clearly shows how illogical and irrational it is for one to remain neutral in the face of oppression. This is someone who is working to ensure his survival, and maybe with a chain of dependence. Once again, the speaker claims it is none of his business. And then one evening, as I sat down to eat my yam, a knock on the door froze my hungry hand. The jeep was waiting on my bewildered lawn, waiting, waiting in its usual silence. Let's now move to the last stanza of the poem. This stanza begins with the speaker telling his own experience instead of somebody else's, creating a sense of doom for what could possibly happen to him. His daily yam eating ritual or habit that is so essential to his life has been interrupted. The lexical item knocks on the door is an auditory image that appeals to our sense of hearing. It suddenly amplifies the fear, anxiety, terror, and distress felt by the speaker as well as the reader. The alliteration in hungry hand draws attention to this line and makes it more powerful. His surrounding mirrors his feeling of surprise, as seen with a personification in the bewildered lawn. This is a strange image, but it may reflect how he is all alone. After all these instances of mistreatment, there is no one left around to mourn his loss except for nature, which is ultimately powerless and incapable of doing anything. This line buttresses the idea that what goes round or what goes around will surely come back around. In his time of distress, there is no one to sympathize with him. That is to say, it is just a matter of time till we all become victims of oppression. Hence, when one sees that another person is being oppressed or another person is in an oppressed situation, we should try our best to help the person. It is true that people are generally calm at the misfortune of others, and since the speaker at this moment is being affected by the actions of the dictatorial forces, he doesn't repeat his popular apathetic attitude of, "What business of mine is it?" That is, people are generally calm at the misfortune of others. It is only a matter of time till we all become victims of oppression. So when we see someone in an oppressed situation, let's try our best to help the person out. Let us consider the setting of the poem. The setting of the poem is post-independence Nigeria, which has witnessed many instances of brutality and oppressions in the hands of their post-colonial leaders or dictatorial leaders. The names of the victims also tell us more about the setting of the poem. The three individual names Niyi Osundare mentioned in the poem are Akani, a Yoruba name, Danladi, a Hausa name, and Chinwe, an Igbo name. All these names are referring to the three major ethnic groups in Nigeria. Therefore, we can confidently say that the setting of this poem is post-independence Nigeria. This poem was written in context of General Abacha's brutal dictatorship in Nigeria. It also criticizes the tyrannical regimes in Nigeria, particularly Abacha's tyrannical rule. During his rule, he banned all political activities and controlled the press to repress any opposition towards him. Structure and form of the poem. Not My Business by Niyi Osundare is written in free verse with no rhyme scheme and is made up of 4 stanzas. The first 3 stanzas have the same structure. They begin with a description of the events taking place and end with a 3-line refrain in which the speaker asks a question. The refrain in Not My Business is repeated for emphasis since it tells a lot about the speaker's character. The speaker of the poem asks a cruel rhetorical question through which he clarifies that he feels no responsibility to take action against injustice. As long as it only targets other people, he is good to go. Instead, he focuses on his yam, a form of nourishment. This pattern, once established, is then broken in the final stanza of the poem, which reflects on the speaker's own experience or the speaker's own situation. It is clear from all indication that The speaker's situation also takes a sharp turn. Let's now consider the diction of the poem. Diction is the craft of selecting and joining words by poets to enrich the poem to communicate. The language of this poem is generally simple, as the poet craftily expresses his thoughts, ideas, and feelings in carefully selected words and phrases. Not my business clearly depicts the apathy of people towards the plight of others. The use of the lexical items beaten, booted, dragged, and bewildered clearly depict the brutality associated with oppression. This is probably intended by the poet to mirror the widespread nature of the threat to civil liberty in Nigeria at the time the poem was written. It also goes to depict the bestial nature of the leader, General Abacha, and his dictatorial rule. Mood. The mood of the poem is satirical, but it is also serious and ominous because it discusses dire events and how people are callous towards what requires serious attention. Let's now consider the major themes of the poem. The theme of indifference or apathy. The theme of suppression or oppression. The theme of tyranny. Let's now consider the literal devices in this poem. Niyi Osundare makes a very effective use of figurative language in his poem, Not My Business, in order to emphasize his idea and to evoke the desired emotion. Those identified include simile, rhetorical question, personification, refrain, synecdoche, and euphemism. Let's discuss them one after the other, starting with simile. The use of the device of simile in the poem is very effective and therefore functional in terms of the images it creates. Simile is a direct comparison between two unlike things with the use of as and like. The only example is found in beat him soft like clay. The writer illustrates a similarity of actions undertaken in the poetry industry to mold or shape the clay to any shape to how oppressors subdue their victims. Personification. We come across the line and stuffed him down the belly of a waiting jeep. Rhetorical question. What business of mine is it, so long they don't take the yam from my savoring mouth? Refrain. What business of mine is it, so long they don't take the yam from my savoring mouth? Synecdoche. Hungry hand. Euphemism. Picked up. A mild way of saying arrested. Thanks for watching this video. Please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video.